Imagine waking up tomorrow morning.
Ah!
Like it is just a completely normal Tuesday in the year 2026.
Right, just a regular day.
Exactly. You stumble out of bed, you walk into the kitchen, you pour your coffee, and you casually glance at the news notifications on your phone.
As you do.
Yeah. But instead of the usual, you know, political updates or stock market numbers, the screen is flashing with something else entirely.
But it's thing massive.
Right. Every major news network across the globe is broadcasting the exact same unprecedented event, extraterrestrial contact.
Wow. Yeah.
And not just like a blurry photo or a vague radio signal from a distant galaxy, but undeniable, absolute proof of a massive, technologically superior alien presence right here in our solar system.
Undeniable proof. That is heavy.
It really is. In that single moment as you take a sip of your coffee, everything you thought you knew, every historical textbook you memorized,
Right.
scientific principle you trusted, every religious text you relied on to make sense of the universe, it completely collapses overnight.
Right. The entire paradigm.
The entire paradigm of human existence is shattered. You realize you are essentially living in a cosmic version of the Truman Show.
The psychological weight of that moment is just almost impossible to quantify. What you are describing is the absolute destruction of our reality's coordinate system.
Reality's coordinate system. I like that phrase.
Well, think about it. For thousands of years, human beings have built elaborate frameworks. We have governments, religions, scientific institutions, right?
Right.
And we use all of them to explain where we are and why we matter. When those frameworks are instantly vaporized by an undeniable outside truth, the human mind doesn't just adapt, it fractures.
It fractures.
Yeah.
Right, and it sounds like a terrifying sci-fi premise, like the kind of thing you watch in a summer blockbuster.
Oh, absolutely.
But sitting right here on the table between us is a massive, heavy stack of actual investment prospectuses.
Yeah, these are real documents.
Right. White papers, corporate strategic documents. These aren't scripts for a movie. They are from a Taiwanese cultural and creative company called MicroCosmic International.
MicroCosmic International.
Yeah, and they are actively raising billions of dollars based on the premise that this exact 2026 scenario is not just possible, but inevitable. They call it their new civilization strategic layout.
And we need to be incredibly precise about what we are looking at here, because when you start reading these documents, it is very easy to get lost in the talk of ancient mythology.
Right, extraterrestrial fleets and hollow moons, all of that.
Exactly. But if you look at the formatting, the language, and the target audience, you realize these are highly detailed RWA, real-world asset tokenomics white papers.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the sheer audacity of this stack of papers is staggering.
It really is. They are strategic business analyses specifically aimed at global bankers, sovereign wealth funds, and institutional venture capitalists.
And we are going to treat these concepts today not as wild internet fringe theories, but exactly how MicroCosmic presents them, as highly engineered strategic cultural assets.
Right, we are just looking at the architecture of the pitch.
Exactly. We are impartially reporting on what these documents say. We aren't here to take sides on whether an alien fleet is actually arriving in 2026.
Right.
What we are analyzing is the sheer scale and brilliance of a business model, built entirely around the anticipated collapse of human reality.
Yeah.
I mean, they are treating the apocalypse as a market opportunity.
They are essentially treating narrative as infrastructure. In their view, when the old world ends, the most valuable commodity on Earth won't be gold.
Not gold, yeah.
It won't be oil, and it certainly won't be fiat currency. The most valuable commodity will be a coherent explanation of reality.
Wow. A coherent explanation.
Yes. They are positioning their intellectual property to be the foundational textbook for the next phase of human civilization. If you control the story that stabilizes a panicked global population, you essentially control the new world.
Which brings us to the foundation of their entire operation. According to these prospectuses, 2026 is the target date.
Right, the target date.
Yeah, they call it the Great Awakening era or the Great Disclosure era. They state that humanity will experience an unprecedented ontological shock.
Ontological shock.
But wait, hold on. A media company is going to step in and cure global panic with a publishing catalog. Like, that doesn't track for me.
I mean, it sounds counterintuitive, right?
Right. If giant alien ships show up in the sky, people are looking for the military. They're looking for their presidents, maybe their religious leaders. They aren't looking for a corporate media publisher to save them.
What's fascinating here is that MicroCosmic's analysts argue that the military and the traditional governments will be fundamentally discredited in this scenario.
Oh, because they couldn't stop it.
Think about it. If the military couldn't detect or stop this presence, their authority is just gone.
That makes sense.
And if religious leaders have been preaching a human-centric universe, their theology is suddenly bankrupt. Microcosmic's documents anticipate this massive vacuum of authority.
A vacuum of authority.
Yes, and they break down the resulting psychological chaos into two massive, immediate needs that the entire human population will suddenly crave in 2026. The first is what they term cosmic identity.
Cosmic identity. Okay.
And the second is ontological security.
A cosmic identity. Let's dig into that. If our coordinate system collapses, it sounds like people won't just be scared. They will feel completely humiliated.
Humiliated is the perfect word.
Right. Because we go from being the apex predators, the masters of our own little blue marble, to essentially being zoo animals or primitive microbes in a vast, highly populated cosmic ocean.
And Microcosmic's documents identify this exact psychological void. The immediate reaction to extraterrestrial contact is deep existential insignificance.
Right, feeling totally tiny.
The primary question shifting in the human mind goes from "are we alone?" to "who are we and where do we rank in this new hierarchy?"
So need a win.
People will desperately need an identity that elevates them, something that makes them feel important again in a universe that just proved how small they are.
So they need a new story. They need someone to walk into the room and say, hey, don't worry, you aren't a cosmic accident.
Exactly.
And that is where Microcosmic's IP steps in. They are calling their narrative a spiritual safe harbor. They aren't just selling books. They're selling a psychological defense mechanism.
Exactly. And the second part of that defense mechanism is ontological security.
Right, ontological security.
In sociology, ontological security is the deep-seated human need to feel that the world is predictable, manageable, and safe.
Like knowing the sun will come up.
It is the subconscious trust you have that the sun will rise tomorrow, that gravity will hold you down, and that society will function. When you introduce highly advanced, unknown alien entities into the sky, that predictability is instantly annihilated.
Because the immediate instinct is going to be threat detection.
Totally.
Right. Are they going to harvest our resources? Are they going to wipe us out? Are we the cosmic equivalent of an anthill next to a construction site?
Precisely. And so, to provide ontological security, Microcosmic has to do more than just say, don't panic.
Right. A bumper sticker won't cut it.
They have engineered a framework that explains the alien presence not as a conquering threat, but as part of a grand, manageable, and ultimately positive cosmic plan. They are selling a new reality where humanity is actually perfectly safe.
But to pull that off, you can't just tweak the innards of human knowledge. You have to burn the whole library down and rewrite human history from scratch.
Right, from the very beginning.
Which brings us to the specific mind-bending narrative they have engineered to provide this spiritual safe harbor. Their flagship piece of intellectual property is a book which they explicitly present to investors as a factual declassified text titled Prehistoric Human Star Wars. Yi shoots 9 suns.
This is where their strategy of merging cultural touchstones with cosmic science fiction really takes shape.
Yeah, Yi shoots 9 suns.
For those who might not know, the myth of Hao Yi shooting the 9 suns is one of the most foundational stories in ancient Chinese culture.
Right, the original myth is beautiful, but straightforward. The Earth was being scorched by 10 suns that all decided to rise at the same time.
Right, a massive crisis.
The crops were dying, monsters were coming out, humanity was on the brink of extinction. So the heroic archer, Hu Yi, takes his bow and shoots down 9 of the 10 suns, leaving only 1 to warm the Earth.
A classic tale of man conquering chaotic nature.
It is. But Microcosmic takes this ancient poetic myth and claims it is literal historical fact.
Yes.
They are telling investors that this isn't folklore. It is the surviving record of a prehistoric interstellar war.
By doing this, they are systematically dismantling the Darwinian framework of evolution.
Just throwing it out.
They are looking at the timeline of human history, the idea that we evolved from primates a few million years ago, and throwing it out the window. Microcosmic's documents claim a 200-million-year-old cosmic history.
200 million years.
In their timeline, humans didn't evolve on Earth. We are interstellar citizens. We are the descendants of ancient starfaring royalty.
It is such a brilliant psychological pivot. If you are terrified about aliens arriving in 2026, Microcosmic's narrative swoops in and says, actually, you are the ancient aliens.
Right, it totally flips the script on feeling insignificant.
But the way they try to prove this in the white papers is what genuinely surprised me. Because they don't just rely on vague ancient texts. They use hyper-specific, contrarian scientific claims to build their case.
Oh, they get very specific.
For example, they state over and over that the surface temperature of the sun is actually only 27 degrees Celsius.
Yes, 27 degrees Celsius, which is roughly 80 degrees Fahrenheit.
Room temperature.
Room temperature.
I read that line in the prospectus, and I had to stop walking. Because they aren't just adjusting history, they are subverting fundamental astrophysics.
They really are.
The mainstream scientific consensus is that the sun's surface is around 5,500 degrees Celsius. Why on earth would a company pitching to Wall Street bankers claim the sun is room temperature?
Because it serves a highly specific tactical purpose in their psychological layout. Think about what we discussed regarding authority.
Right, the vacuum of trust.
To make their new narrative the absolute truth, they first have to break your trust in current authorities. By introducing claims that radically contradict established science, like a cold sun, and then offering elaborate pseudoscientific explanations for why NASA and global governments have been lying to you about it, they create a massive vacuum of trust.
So if they can convince you that the scientific consensus about the sun is a massive cover-up, then what else is NASA lying about?
Exactly. It softens the mental ground.
Right. Once that trust in traditional science is broken, the reader is much more open to accepting MicroCosmic's alternative history as the hidden truth.
Precisely. It is a technique used in high-level narrative engineering. You dismantle the old paradigm by attacking its most unshakable pillars.
And they do this while simultaneously elevating ancient texts.
Right.
The prospectuses heavily reference the Shanhai Jing, the classic of mountains and seas.
Which is usually read by scholars as a fascinating collection of mythical geography and bizarre beasts from ancient China.
Right, but MicroCosmic frames the Shanhai Jing as a literal, meticulously kept logbook of alien encounters, prehistoric technology, and genetic engineering.
In their business documents, they call this strategy Eastern Essence, Cosmic Perspective.
Eastern Essence, Cosmic Perspective.
It is designed to bridge the gap between deep-rooted ancient heritage and modern UFO phenomena. And from an investment standpoint, they point out to sovereign wealth funds that this makes the IP universally appealing. It taps into the global subconscious memory.
But rewriting ancient history and telling us our ancestors flew spaceships is really only half the battle.
Right. What about right now?
Exactly. If you want to make humanity feel truly secure during an ontological shock, you have to explain the physical universe around us right now. If the universe is teeming with advanced life, what is happening in our immediate neighborhood?
Yes.
And this is where the documents drop what is arguably the biggest bombshell of the entire deep dive. It is about the moon.
The moon is the central pillar of their entire physical cosmology. According to MicroCosmic's prospectuses, the moon is not a natural satellite.
It's not just a rock.
No, it is not a chunk of rock that broke off the Earth billions of years ago. They explicitly define the moon as a 3,467-kilometer-wide, 100-million-year-old planetary-class divine vessel.
A planetary warship built by ancient humans and the Creator. They're telling venture capitalists that a 3,000-kilometer-wide hollow metal spaceship has been parked right above our heads for 100 million years.
Yes, and again, they don't just say this. They try to prove it by co-opting real-world scientific anomalies. They point to the Apollo missions.
They leverage specific historical events to legitimize their claims.
They heavily cite the moment during the Apollo 12 mission when the lunar module intentionally crashed into the moon's surface to calibrate seismic equipment.
Oh, the ringing bell thing.
Yes, the resulting seismic data showed the moon reverberating or ringing like a bell for over an hour.
Which is wild on its own.
Right. Mainstream geologists have explanations for this involving the dry, fractured nature of lunar rock, but MicroCosmic seizes on this anomaly as absolute proof that the moon has a hollow, metallic, engineered interior.
So they use a real NASA data point, strip away the mainstream geological context, and repurpose it as proof of a hollow spaceship. And they claim it was put there specifically to protect Earth from negative extraterrestrial forces.
If we look at the mechanics of this from a psychological perspective, it is pure genius. Think about the sheer terror of looking up at the night sky after extraterrestrial disclosure.
Right, looking out into the dark.
The cosmos goes from being a beautiful tapestry to a terrifying dark ocean full of unknown predators. By framing the moon, the largest, most prominent object in our night sky, as a benevolent, heavily armed warship built by our own ancient ancestors, MicroCosmic turns the terrifying unknown into a deeply comforting alliance.
It changes the night sky into a giant security blanket, Every single time you look up, you aren't seeing a cold, dead rock trapped in our gravity. You are seeing a guardian angel made of titanium watching over you.
And they apply this exact same psychological reframing to the Earth itself.
Really? Like the actual planet?
Yes, the prospectuses detail the existence of inner-Earth civilizations groups, like the Atlanteans and Lemurians, who survived ancient cataclysms by retreating underground.
Wow, okay. Inner Earth, too.
Instead of framing these hidden, technologically superior civilizations as threats that might emerge and conquer us, MicroCosmic positions them as ancient siblings, allies who are waiting to assist humanity.
So everyone is our friend.
They are systematically transforming every unknown frontier, deep space, the deep oceans, the inner Earth, into a network of benevolent guardians.
Okay, so we have the moon acting as a passive defensive shield, and we have inner Earth allies. But the prospectuses don't just outline a static defense.
No, they detail an active, incoming, real-time event.
Right. They introduce a force called the 3 Itelades fleet. Now, in the real world, outside of these documents, ATLS is the name of a recently discovered comet that astronomers have been tracking.
Right, a real comet.
But MicroCosmic claims this isn't a chunk of dirty ice. They claim ATLAS is actually a massive cosmic fleet currently decelerating into our solar system.
This is where their narrative intersects with real-time astronomical events to create an extreme sense of urgency for their investors. By tying their cosmic timeline to a visible comet, they're telling their audience, the timeline isn't thousands of years from now. The ships are visibly on our radar.
Wait, so who is commanding this comet fleet? Like, if they were arriving right now, who is in charge?
According to the documents, the 3IATL's fleet, which operates under the broader umbrella of the Galactic Federation, is not a hostile invasion force.
Okay, so good.
They are under the direct command of an entity referred to as the Palace of the Gods. And here is where the geographical anchoring of their business model becomes crucial. They claim this Palace of the Gods is currently deployed and operating out of Taiwan.
Taiwan. Let me get this straight.
Oh.
The central command post for a multi-million-year-old interstellar armada that is currently masquerading as a comet to enter our solar system.
Great.
It's located on the island of Taiwan.
That is the explicit claim in the business documents. And the stated mission of this ATLS fleet is to enforce what they call true law.
True law.
The prospectuses argue that Earth's current operating systems, our global financial institutions, our political hierarchies, our traditional energy grids, are actually malicious tools of enslavement.
Enslavement by who?
They claim these systems were installed by dark, negative alien forces to keep humanity suppressed. The 3ILO's fleet is arriving to dismantle these negative remnants and liberate humanity.
Is the ultimate cosmic cavalry coming over the hill to rescue us. But here's the thing. It is one thing to write a prospectus claiming the moon is a spaceship and a comet is an alien fleet.
Sure.
Those are grand, abstract, mythological ideas. You can sell books with that. But MicroCosmic takes us into the realm of hard infrastructure. They claim that we are actually going to use the moon's technology to physically power our homes right now.
This represents the most significant pivot in their strategic layout. They transition from cultural narrative providing meaning and identity into applied technology and global infrastructure.
From books to power grids.
Yes. They introduce a proprietary technology they call the water energy system, or Kinuri water energy.
So they've convinced their audience the moon is a protective battery. But you can't just hand out free energy. You need a system to distribute it. And they claim this water energy system is designed to completely replace the entire global fossil fuel industry and traditional electrical power grids.
Which is brilliant from a marketing standpoint because it taps into modern socioeconomic anxieties perfectly.
Oh, absolutely.
Millions of people already feel economically squeezed by utility companies and the fossil fuel industry. They are frustrated by rising electric bills and environmental degradation.
Yeah, everybody hates paying their power bill.
MicroCosmic validates that mundane frustration by elevating it to a cosmic conspiracy. They tell the consumer, you aren't just paying high electric bills, you are being energetically drained by a negative alien control matrix.
And then they offer the water energy system as the ultimate liberation tool. But the mechanics of this system, when you read the technical sections of the white paper, it sounds like absolute magic. They claim to be utilizing the wireless transmission principles pioneered by Nikola Tesla.
Right, Tesla's wireless ideas.
But instead of giant metal towers shooting lightning, they claim this system uses the specific geometric structures of water to act as a frequency receiver.
To understand the how of this mechanism, we have to look back at the interior of their hollow moon. The prospectuses state that the moon's core contains polymerized, high-dimensional quasi-crystals.
Quasi-crystals. Okay, let's pause there because they are throwing around some heavy physics jargon. What exactly is a quasi-crystal and why use that specific term?
In real-world physics, a normal crystal, like a diamond or salt, has a molecular structure that repeats in a perfectly periodic, predictable pattern.
Right, like a grid.
Exactly. A quasi-crystal, which was discovered in the 1980s and actually won a Nobel Prize, has a structure that is ordered, but it never repeats. It breaks the traditional rules of crystallography. It is a highly exotic and complex state of matter.
So it's real science.
Yes. By using the term quasi-crystal, MicroCosmic is grounding their wild claims in a real, highly complex scientific concept. They claim these massive lunar quasi-crystals act as an ancient cosmic broadcasting station. They generate and beam high-frequency scalar waves down to the surface of the Earth.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
so the moon is shooting invisible scalar waves at us. How does the water in my house catch it? Because they aren't selling satellite dishes.
No, they aren't. They explain that water, at a molecular level, can be geometrically structured to act like an antenna.
Water as an antenna.
Think about a radio. If you want to listen to a specific station, you have to tune the antenna to resonate at the exact frequency of the radio wave being broadcast. MicroCosmic claims their technology structures the water in your home so its geometry perfectly matches the frequency of the scalar waves being beamed from the lunar quasi-crystals.
So the water sitting in the pipes of your house right now is theoretically just an inactive antenna waiting to be tuned.
Hmm.
And when it is tuned by their system, it catches this lunar scalar wave. And what happens then?
According to the documents, when the water resonates with that specific lunar frequency, it triggers a localized collapse of the vacuum, pulling infinite zero-point energy directly out of the fabric of space-time.
0-point energy.
Yes. This energy is then harnessed to power your lights, your appliances, your entire life. It completely bypasses the need for burning coal, splitting uranium atoms, or laying thousands of miles of vulnerable copper wire.
It is the ultimate utopian promise. Unlimited, free, clean energy beamed continuously from a benevolent lunar warship caught by the water in your kitchen sink. But, and this is the massive baby, if a company actually holds the proprietary keys to unlimited lunar energy, and they also hold the copyright to the official history of the universe, that isn't just a spiritual awakening. That is the most lucrative monopoly in the history of human commerce.
Exactly, and that naturally brings us to the financial reality of what MicroCosmic is building.
Let's get into the money.
Up until this point, we have discussed their mythology, their sociology, and their proposed physics. But the documents on this table are fundamentally financial prospectuses.
Right. MicroCosmic is not a charity. They are not a grassroots religious movement. They are engineering a massive, globally scaled financial vehicle. They are launching a real-world asset tokenization project. Let's transition into these financial white papers because the math they are presenting to investors is just staggering. They are outlining a roadmap for a NASDAQ initial public offering, an IPO targeted for the year 2028, and their target valuation. They are telling institutional investors they project a market cap of between $52 billion and $300 billion.
To put a $300 billion valuation in perspective, that would instantly make them one of the most valuable corporations on the planet, placing them alongside global titans like massive pharmaceutical conglomerates or major tech platforms.
It's Apple, Google, MicroCosmic.
Right.
Yeah.
And they justify this jaw-dropping valuation through a metric they call the total addressable civilizational market.
Most companies have a total addressable market, a TAM of maybe smartphone users in Asia or enterprise software companies. MicroCosmic is saying, our market is the entire human race.
Because if their intellectual property and their energy technology are going to completely replace all existing educational systems, all global religions, and the entire fossil fuel infrastructure, then their customer base is literally every single human being that survives the 2026 paradigm shift.
And they have engineered a very specific financial mechanism to capture that market. They break down the tokenomics in granular detail. They are introducing their own cryptocurrency, the MicroCosmic token, with the ticker symbols MICO or WATT. The mechanics of this are fascinating.
The 1-to-10 split, right.
Exactly. They are starting with their 900 million shares of physical, real-world company equity. They plan to execute a 1-to-10 stock split, taking those 900 million shares and turning them into 9 billion tokens.
This is the core mechanism of RWA real-world asset tokenization. In the crypto world, many tokens are backed by nothing but speculative hype. But by explicitly tying every single one of those 9 billion tokens to a legally binding fraction of physical equity in their corporate entity, they bridge the gap between traditional Wall Street stock issuance and decentralized cryptocurrency.
So it feels safer.
It creates a perceived floor of value for the crypto investor while providing massive liquidity for the company.
But the token isn't just a digital stock certificate sitting in a vault. It has massive utility within their proposed daily ecosystem. They outline the creation of what they call a PayFi ecosystem. PayFi essentially merges payment systems with decentralized finance. Think about how this works in practice.
Right.
So you have the water energy system installed in your house, right?
Okay.
It's receiving infinite power from the lunar quasi-crystals. But you still have to pay for the proprietary technology that tunes the water. You aren't going to write a check to a traditional utility company in US dollars or euros.
No, the traditional fiat system is part of the dark alien matrix they are overthrowing.
Exactly. So instead, you pay your monthly energy subscription using their cryptocurrency, the MIC, or Watt token. You buy their books and immersive educational materials using the token. They are creating a completely closed-loop, sovereign financial ecosystem that entirely bypasses traditional global banking. You live in their narrative, you power your home with their tech, and you transact entirely in their currency.
It is a totally sovereign economy.
But wait, I have to push back on this, because there's a massive contradiction staring us in the face here. We've spent the last 40 minutes talking about a spiritual safe harbor. We've talked about the Great Awakening, the Creator's divine plan to liberate humanity from enslavement, the arrival of celestial fleets. If their goal is genuine spiritual salvation, and the establishment of a benevolent post-scarcity global order isn't going public on Wall Street incredibly hypocritical.
It sounds like it, yeah.
I mean, a NASDAQ-U IPO. Won't inviting greedy venture capitalists, hedge funds, and institutional traders to buy controlling stakes in the company completely ruin the divine mission? Wall Street doesn't care about the palace of the gods. Wall Street cares about quarterly earnings.
This raises an important question. That is the most critical vulnerability in their plan. And it is a question the architects of MicroCosmic strategy have clearly spent a lot of legal hours addressing. They fully acknowledge the risk of secular capital corrupting the spiritual mission.
So they thought of it.
If a massive activist hedge fund buys 51% of the tokens, they could fire the leadership, scrap the ancient mythology, and just try to patent and sell the water technology to Exxon.
Right.
To prevent this, MicroCosmic has designed an incredibly sophisticated corporate governance solution. The white papers detail a transition from a standard private ownership model into what they legally define as a mission-driven trust structure.
A mission-driven trust. How does a legal trust protect an extraterrestrial awakening?
They are establishing a legal entity called the Creator Trust Fund. This trust is designed to hold the vast majority, the controlling interest of the company's equity and tokens. In corporate law, if you lock controlling equity inside an irrevocable trust, the trustees are legally bound by fiduciary duty to execute the exact mandate written into the trust's charter. In this case, the legal mandate is the execution of the Creator's grand plan.
That is wild. It's an unprecedented collision of corporate law and divine right.
It theoretically immunizes the company entirely from hostile takeovers. It doesn't matter how many billions of dollars they raise on the NASDAQ. The public investors will only ever own non-controlling shares. The trust ensures that the core spiritual narrative and civilizational mission remains legally impenetrable to activist investors who might want to strip the company for parts.
So they get to tap into the endless billions of dollars in the public capital markets while legally binding the corporation to its apocalyptic salvationist goals. But what fascinates me is that they aren't just keeping this empire in the digital realm of tokens and legal trusts. They are moving into physical real estate. They're building massive physical touch points to anchor their intellectual property in the real world.
Yes, to make an ontological shock manageable, people need physical spaces to gather and process the new reality. The documents outline concrete plans to construct a lunar pavilion, and they have targeted a very specific location, the Taipei Performing Arts Center, or TPAC.
If you've ever seen photos of TPAC, it is a striking piece of architecture. It has this massive silver metallic sphere protruding from the side of the building. It already looks like a futuristic planetary structure or a docked spaceship.
Exactly why they chose it. They intend to retrofit that space to create an immersive, high-tech embassy for lunar civilization. Visitors wouldn't just be reading a book about the moon worship, they would walk into a highly engineered, sensory-rich physical simulation of it. It creates a physical pilgrimage site for their cosmic identity.
A pilgrimage site.
But this lunar pavilion is just phase one of their real estate ambitions. The ultimate physical manifestation of their IP, outlined in the long-term prospectuses, is a massive, global, moon-themed amusement and educational park, potentially slated for the Taiyuan Aerotropolis development zone.
I see what they're doing here. If you look at the structure of this entire enterprise, it is a brilliant amalgamation of three wildly different models of human organization. I call it the Disney, Vatican, NASDAQ triangle.
Disney, Vatican, NASDAQ triangle. Explain that framework.
Think about it. First, they operate like Disney. They engineer globally resonant mythic intellectual property, and then they build massive physical theme parks where consumers can physically step inside the story and interact with it. Second, they operate like the Vatican. They position themselves as the sole, infallible arbiters of spiritual truth, humanity's origins, and our relationship to the cosmos, demanding deep ideological devotion.
Right, the absolute authority.
And third, they operate like a NASDAQ tech unicorn. They aggressively tokenize their assets, pursue hyper-growth public valuations, and monopolize a disruptive physical technology like the water energy. They have synthesized entertainment, religion, and high finance into a single corporate entity.
That is an incredibly accurate synthesis. And let's bring this all back to you, the listener, and put you directly in the shoes of the target audience for these documents. Imagine you are a high-level portfolio manager at a sovereign wealth fund. You are sitting in a boardroom, and you are handed this prospectus. You are told with absolute unwavering conviction backed by hundreds of pages of documentation that the paradigm of human reality will completely collapse in 2026.
You are explicitly warned that your traditional fiat currency, your commercial real estate portfolios, and your stable government bonds will become instantly worthless the moment an alien fleet is verified in the sky.
And then the pitch reaches its climax. They tell you that the only risk-free premium asset left on the entire planet, the only mechanism that will retain and generate value in the new cosmic era, is the intellectual property of a 100-million-year-old lunar warship and the proprietary rights to beam its scalar energy into household water.
It is the absolute weaponized ultimate pitch of FOMO, the fear of missing out. They are looking these billionaires in the eye and saying, buy into our vision right now, or be left holding the worthless ashes of the old world. They are quite literally monetizing the apocalypse.
By offering this truth premium, they are suggesting that their corporate assets are the only viable arc in a collapsing civilization. Whether you view this as the visionary truth of the century or the most elaborate, highly speculative financial mechanism ever devised, the architectural alignment of their narrative, their proposed physics, and their tokenized financial structure is incredibly robust. It is built to withstand extreme scrutiny from the very systems it aims to replace.
We have covered an unbelievable amount of ground today, plunging deep into one of the most complex strategic layouts I have ever read. We started with the terrifying premise of the 2026 ontological shock, that inevitable moment when humanity realizes we are not alone, triggering a massive, desperate need for cosmic identity and ontological security.
Right, that immediate psychological void.
We saw how MicroCosmic anticipates this panic and steps in to reframe the ancient myth of Yeshut's 9 sons. They rewrite human history to make us ancient interstellar citizens, and they claim the sun is a chilly 27 degrees Celsius just to break our trust in NASA and soften our minds for the new truth.
From there, we explored the staggering cosmological assertion that the moon isn't a rock, but a 100-million-year-old hollow planetary warship built by our ancestors to protect us. We analyzed the claim that the ATLA's comet is actually a galactic Federation fleet arriving to enforce true law, operating under the command of the Palace of the Gods right out of Taiwan.
We then transitioned from mythology to infrastructure, plugging into the lunar power grid with the Canri water energy system. We learned how they claim to use the geometry of water as an antenna to catch scalar waves from lunar quasi-crystals, extracting zero-point vacuum energy to power our homes and bypass fossil fuels entirely.
Which is just technologically wild.
And finally, we unpacked the massive $52 billion to $300 billion NASDAQ IPO plan, driven by a 1-to-10 split of 9 billion RWA tokens fueling a PayFi ecosystem, all shielded from Wall Street greed by the impenetrable legal armor of the Creator Trust Fund.
It truly is a masterclass in narrative engineering. Whether one believes the prophecies of 2026, the interstellar wars, or the physics of lunar scalar waves, the sheer ambition of the new civilization's strategic layout cannot be ignored. The architecture of using a comprehensive cosmic narrative as a global psychological defense mechanism and then systematically building a multi-billion-dollar financial and technological ecosystem around it is brilliantly executed. It demonstrates a profound understanding of mass human psychology, the stabilizing power of myth, and the mechanics of modern capital markets.
So what does this all mean? It completely blurs the lines between a publishing house, a new global religion, an energy infrastructure monopoly, and Wall Street high finance, in a way I have never seen before. It is the Disney-Vatican-NASDAQ triangle in full effect. But before we wrap up today, I want to leave you with one final lingering detail from the deep recesses of these sources. It's a detail that really stuck with me, and it's something for you to mull over.
Oh, this is the best part.
Right now, as they prepare the groundwork for this massive 2028 IPO, MicroCosmic is offering a very exclusive, highly limited pre-IPO buy-in. According to the documents, they're offering exactly 3 and only 3 ancient authoritative shares to select strategic investors.
Just 3 shares globally, the ultimate artificial scarcity.
C3. And the documents state that these specific shares trace back directly to the primal holdings of entities called Maitreya and the Purple Star, who are essentially framed as the divine founders and architects of this entire new cosmic order. And the price for one of these shares, they cost a cool 10 million new Taiwan dollars each.
Granted, they come with warrants for millions of future tokens, but the initial ticket price is 10 million NTD just to hold a piece of certified divine authority. So I will ask you directly, if the world really does turn upside down in 2026, if the skies open up, the astronomical models fail, the 3 ITLA's fleets arrive, and everything you thought you knew about reality collapses overnight, would you buy a $10 million seat at the boardroom table of human creation? Thank you so much for joining us on this incredible deep dive into the microcosmic prospectuses. We will catch you next time.
Observe, connect.